Honey, forgive Mum. No Christmas dinner this year, she said, her voice trembling as she tried to sound strong. The millionaire, listening a few feet away, felt something break inside. 5 minutes later, what he did would change the course of that night forever. But Mum, can't we get a small turkey? Liam's voice held that mix of hope and disappointment only children can express. His small fingers clung to the nearly empty shopping cart as his eyes scanned the holiday food section of the supermarket. Martha Stevens crouched down to be at eye level with her 5-year-old son. Her face, framed by strands of brown hair escaping an improvised ponytail, tried to hold a smile despite the lump in her throat. She wore a worn, grey sweater that had seen better days, just like her. "Liam, listen," she whispered, taking his little hands in hers. "This year will be different. We can do something special. Just you and me. We don't need a big turkey." "But we always have turkey for Christmas," Liam insisted. His big eyes filled with a premature understanding for his age. "Is it because Dad isn't with us anymore?" Martha swallowed. Her ex-husband had left the family almost a year ago, leaving her with debt, a tiny apartment, and the responsibility of raising Liam alone while juggling 2 minimum wage jobs. "No, sweetheart," she replied softly. "It's because prices are really high this year." "Honey, forgive Mum. There's no Christmas dinner this year, at least not like the ones we used to have. But I promise we'll do something special, okay? Maybe some Christmas cookies. We can decorate them together." She tried to make her voice sound enthusiastic, but the reality was she could barely afford groceries. The last electricity bill had consumed what she had set aside for Christmas dinner, and her next paycheck wouldn't arrive until after the holidays. A few yards away, Robert Sterling observed the scene while pretending to examine a bottle of imported wine. With his perfectly tailored navy blue suit and upright posture, he looked out of place in that neighborhood grocery store. Normally, his personal assistant handled these mundane tasks, but for a few years now, Robert had a custom of doing some shopping himself on the eves of holidays. It was his particular way of connecting with reality, as he liked to think. What began as simple curiosity upon hearing the woman's strained voice turned into genuine interest as he witnessed the exchange. There was something about the dignity of that mother and the maturity of the little boy that contrasted sharply with the superficial conversations that filled his life. At 40 years old, Robert Sterling had built a real estate empire that placed him among the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. He had everything money could buy: a mansion in the city's most exclusive area, a collection of luxury cars, artwork valued at millions of dollars. And yet, as he watched that woman comfort her son with the promise of simple homemade cookies, a familiar emptiness settled in his chest. The night before, he had hosted a lavish pre-Christmas party at his residence. 50 guests, a Michelin-starred chef, exquisite decoration, and French champagne. He remembered the overly loud laughter, the insubstantial conversations, the exaggerated compliments. "Robert, this party is magnificent. You should have seen Johnson's envious face when I entered your house. That painting must have cost you a fortune, right?" No one had asked how he really was, what he felt, or what he hoped for in the new year. "Mum, can we at least get these cookies?" The boy's voice brought him back to the present. Liam was holding a box of star-shaped Christmas cookies, while Martha checked the price with an expression Robert immediately recognized: the mental calculation of someone who must count every single cent. "Okay, sweetheart. But we'll have to put the cereal back then," she replied, exchanging the items in the cart. Robert felt an impulse he couldn't explain. He put down the bottle of wine and walked purposefully toward the pair. As he approached, he noticed details he hadn't seen before: the dark circles under Martha's tired eyes, the small paint smudges on Liam's nails, suggesting recent school art projects, the care with which the mother organized the few items in her cart to maximize her limited budget. "Excuse me," Robert said, surprising himself with the softness of his tone. Normally, his voice in boardrooms was firm, authoritative. Now it sounded almost tentative. Martha looked up, instantly on guard. A single woman with a child quickly learned to be cautious around strangers, especially men in expensive suits. "Yes." "I apologize for the intrusion," Robert continued, suddenly feeling awkward. "I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and I was wondering if I could invite you to a Christmas dinner." The words came out of his mouth before he could analyze them. It wasn't like him to make impulsive invitations, especially not to strangers in a grocery store. His life was meticulously planned, every meeting carefully evaluated for its strategic value. Martha frowned, confused and wary. "Excuse me." "I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself properly. I'm Robert Sterling." He extended his hand, aware that his name probably meant nothing to her, and that, strangely, he found refreshing. "Martha Stevens," she replied automatically, shaking his hand briefly. "And this is my son, Liam." "Hi," the boy said, looking at him with childlike curiosity. "You have a very fancy suit. Are you a prince?" Robert couldn't help but smile at the question. He couldn't remember the last time he had smiled so spontaneously. "No, I'm not a prince. Just a man who is going to spend Christmas alone and would rather not." Martha looked puzzled. She studied Robert more closely, evaluating him. His suit probably cost more than her rent for 3 months, but there was something in his eyes. A loneliness she recognized because she saw it reflected in her own mirror every morning. "Mr. Sterling, I appreciate your offer, but we don't know—" "Please, call me Robert," he interrupted gently, "and I completely understand your reluctance. My proposal must sound completely inappropriate." "A little, yes," Martha admitted with a small, cautious smile. "It's not common for a stranger in a grocery store to invite a mother and her son to dinner." "You're absolutely right," Robert conceded. He hesitated for a moment, considering how to proceed without appearing more strange or intimidating. "Perhaps we could grab a coffee right here. The grocery store has a small coffee shop. You could get to know me a little and decide if my invitation deserves to be considered." Liam tugged on his mother's sweater sleeve. "Mum, can we? We never get coffee at the grocery store." Martha studied Robert for a moment longer. Her instinct told her he didn't pose an immediate danger, and the idea of sitting down and resting for a few minutes before going home with her meager purchases was tempting. Besides, the coffee shop was in plain sight, in a public place. "Coffee," she finally said. "Just that." The small coffee shop at the grocery store was nothing like the elegant restaurants Robert frequented. Plastic tables, machine coffee, and store-bought pastries under fluorescent-lit display cases. However, as he watched Liam enjoy a hot chocolate with the intensity only children can show for small things, he felt this place had something Michelin-starred restaurants couldn't offer. "So," Martha began after an initial awkward silence, "why would a man like you be spending Christmas alone, if it's not too intrusive to ask?" Robert stirred his coffee, reflecting on how to respond. "I suppose it's the result of prioritizing work over relationships for too long," he finally said. "I built a successful business, but I neglected to build a family." "Don't you have anyone? Parents? Siblings?" "My father passed away years ago. My mother lives in Europe with her new husband. We call each other on the holidays, but the relationship is cordial at best. I have a brother in Australia, but we haven't spoken in a while." "I'm sorry," Martha said, and the most surprising thing to Robert was that she seemed sincere. There was not the slightest trace of the false compassion he usually received in his social circle. And you? He asked, genuinely interested. If you don't mind talking about it. Martha sighed softly, running a hand over Liam's hair. He was absorbed in drawing with some crayons the waitress had provided. Liam's father left us last year. One day he simply said he wasn't made for family life and left. He works in another city now, sends some money occasionally, but it's not enough. I work as a secretary in the mornings and clean offices in the evenings. She said it without self-pity, as a simple statement of facts. Her dignity impressed Robert. It must be difficult, he commented. It is, she admitted. But I have Liam, and that makes up for everything. She looked at her son with a pride Robert found touching. He's an amazing kid, smart, compassionate. Even when I explain that we can't afford certain things, like that Christmas dinner he wants so much, he understands. Sometimes I think he understands too much for his age. Liam looked up from his drawing. Look, Mum, I'm drawing you, and this is Mr. Robert, he said, pointing to two stick figures, one with long, wavy hair, and the other with what appeared to be a blue rectangle representing a suit. He's a great artist, Robert smiled, feeling an inexplicable warmth spread in his chest at the boy's simple gesture of including him in his art. About your proposal, Martha said after a moment, returning to the original topic. It's very kind, but… I understand your caution, Robert interrupted softly. I really do. And you are completely right to be wary. Allow me to make a different proposal. I could provide the ingredients for a Christmas dinner. You cook, at your home, just for you and Liam. No commitments or expectations. Martha looked surprised by this turn. That's unexpected. Or if you prefer, Robert continued, I could reserve a table at a restaurant. You choose the place. You can go with Liam, with friends or family if you prefer. I will simply cover the expenses. Martha stared at him, clearly bewildered. Why would you do that for strangers? It was a valid question, one that Robert himself was only beginning to understand. Why did he feel this need to help this woman and her son? Was it simple Christmas altruism, or was there something deeper, a connection to the authenticity they represented, in contrast to the falsehood that surrounded him daily? Honestly, Psha, he began, deciding that the truth, however uncomfortable, was the only thing he could offer. Seeing your son ask about a dinner they can't have made me realize how empty my own celebration is. I have everything money can buy, but none of what really matters on these dates. Genuine connection, family, meaning. Liam, who had been listening although pretending to concentrate on his drawing, suddenly chimed in. If you don't have family for Christmas, you can come to our house. Mum makes the best cookies in the world, even if we can only make a few this year. Liam! Martha looked mortified by her son's spontaneous invitation. But Robert felt something extraordinary in that moment, a feeling of warmth he hadn't experienced in years. The simplicity and generosity of the offer from a child who had so little, yet was willing to share it, deeply moved him. That is a very special invitation, he said, looking at Liam with sincere gratitude. Then he turned his attention to Martha. I don't intend to impose myself. I just want to help you have the Christmas dinner you deserve. No strings attached. Martha observed the man in front of her, this stranger in an expensive suit and eyes that reflected a familiar loneliness. Against all her better judgment, something about him inspired trust. Perhaps it was the way he looked at Liam, without condescension, with genuine interest. Or maybe it was simply that she recognized in him a kind of solitude she herself had experienced. I guess we could consider your offer for the ingredients, she finally said. But I need to think about it. I'm not used to accepting help from strangers. Of course, Robert replied, pulling a card from his wallet. It was a simple, elegant card, with his name and phone number. No ostentatious titles or corporate logos. Take all the time you need. My offer will stand. As Martha took the card with some hesitation, Robert reflected on the unusual nature of the situation. He had entered the grocery store looking for a bottle of wine for his solitary Christmas Eve, and somehow he had ended up offering dinner to an unknown family. It wasn't like him to act on impulse, and yet, for the first time in a long time, something about this interaction felt authentic, free from the layers of false courtesy and calculation that characterized his usual relationships. "We have to go," Martha said, checking her watch. "Liam has to get ready for his school play tomorrow." "I'm a reindeer," Liam announced proudly. "I have a red nose and everything." "I bet you'll be the best reindeer in the show," Robert smiled. As he watched them gather their things and prepare to leave, Robert felt a strange reluctance to end the encounter. "Could I at least pay for your groceries today?" he offered, pointing to the modest cart they had left next to the table. Martha hesitated, but finally nodded. "Thank you. That is very kind of you." At the checkout, Robert discreetly added a few additional items: a small turkey, stuffing ingredients, fresh vegetables, and a box of Christmas cookies for decorating. He did it without ostentation, almost as if it were an afterthought. When it was time to say goodbye in the parking lot, Liam surprised Robert with an impulsive hug around his legs. "Thank you for the hot chocolate and for helping Mum with the groceries," the boy said. Robert, momentarily taken aback by the gesture, knelt down to the boy's level. "Thank you for sharing your afternoon with me, Liam. It was the best part of my week." And as he said those words, he realized they were absolutely true. Amidst meetings with executives, multi-million-dollar negotiations, and high-level events, this simple interaction in a grocery store coffee shop with a working mother and her 5-year-old son had been the most real thing he had experienced in a long time. Martha took Liam's hand, ready to leave. "Thank you again, Mr. Sterling." "Robert, please," he insisted. "Robert," she conceded with a small smile, "I will consider your offer. Really." As he watched them walk away toward a modest, compact car, Robert remained still in the parking lot. He completely forgot that he had come to buy wine, and that his driver was probably waiting nearby. For the first time in years, he felt that something important had happened, something he couldn't express in terms of profits or losses, something that perhaps, just perhaps, could fill that persistent void that neither lavish parties nor professional achievements had managed to eliminate. Robert's driver, George, watched his boss curiously as he approached the luxurious black sedan. After 15 years of working for him, he had rarely seen him with that thoughtful, almost vulnerable expression. "Everything all right, sir?" he asked when Robert settled into the back seat. "Yes, George. Just thinking." Robert looked out the window at the modest car where Martha was helping Liam buckle his seatbelt. "You have children, right?" The question surprised the driver. In all his years of service, Robert had never shown interest in his personal life. "Yes, sir. 2 girls, 18 and 16. What are you doing for Christmas?" George adjusted the rear-view mirror, meeting his boss's gaze. "My wife is making our traditional dinner. Nothing fancy, but it's our favorite time of the year." Robert nodded slowly, thinking about the driver's words. "You know, I don't remember the last time I had a genuine Christmas dinner. One of those prepared with love, not out of obligation." The driver remained silent, bewildered by the sudden introspection of his usually reserved employer. "Home, please," Robert finally instructed, pulling out his phone and starting to type something with determination. In her 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of the city, Martha finished helping Liam practice his reindeer part for the next day's school play. The small plastic red nose refused to stay in place, causing laughter between mother and son. "Mum, Look at all the things the man in the suit gave us. Liam enthusiastically pointed to the grocery bags they had placed on the kitchen counter. There's a real turkey. Martha looked at the additional groceries Robert had discreetly added to her purchases. It was a kind gesture, but it also made her uncomfortable. She wasn't used to accepting help, especially not from an obviously wealthy stranger. Her phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. I hope you got home safely. I apologize if my proposal was inappropriate. I just wanted to help. No expectations. Robert. Martha contemplated the message for a long moment. In other circumstances, she would have ignored a stranger contacting her after a chance encounter. But something about Robert had seemed genuine. Maybe it was the way he had spoken to Liam, without condescension, with real interest. Or perhaps it was simply that, despite his obvious wealth, his eyes reflected a loneliness she recognized all too well. After hesitating, she replied, "Thank you for the additional groceries. Liam is excited about the turkey." The response came almost immediately. "I'm glad. You both deserve a good Christmas dinner." Martha bit her lip, carefully considering her next words. "If you don't have other plans, our invitation is still open. Simple dinner, but from the heart. Think about it." As she sent the message, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Was she inviting a complete stranger into her home? But something inside her told her that Robert posed no danger, just a lonely soul like hers. In his mansion in Bel Air, Robert reread Martha's message while contemplating the spacious living room professionally decorated for the holidays. An imposing 10-foot Christmas tree dominated the space, adorned with crystal ornaments and lights programmed to change subtlety in intensity. Everything was perfect, elegant, and completely devoid of meaning. His phone rang. It was Michael Wilson, his closest business partner. "Robert, confirming for the Christmas Eve party at the club? Carvajal's wife got that famous pianist for the event. It's going to be the party of the year." Robert suddenly remembered the previous year's pre-Christmas dinner at the country club. Executives' drunken faces, forced laughter, conversations about yachts and stock shares. No one really talking to anyone. "Sorry, Michael. I have other plans this year." "Other plans? You?" The surprise in his partner's voice was evident. "Did a competitor's party offer better champagne?" he joked. "No, something more personal," Robert replied vaguely. "Personal? Since when do you have a personal life on Christmas?" The question, although phrased as a joke, struck Robert with its raw truth. "Maybe it's time to change that," he replied simply before hanging up. As he hung up, he looked again at Martha's message. Simple dinner, but from the heart. The words resonated in his mind in a way he couldn't explain. After a moment of reflection, he replied, "I would love to accept your invitation. Can I bring anything?" The answer was immediate. "Just your presence. And maybe a board game. Liam loves them." Robert smiled, feeling a warm anticipation he hadn't experienced in years. The next 2 days passed with a strange mix of normalcy and expectation for both of them. Martha continued with her usual routine. She took Liam to school, worked in the office in the mornings, and cleaned 2 apartments in the afternoon. Only her co-worker, Helen, noticed something different. "You're smiling more," she commented while organizing some files. "Did something good happen?" Martha hesitated. How to explain her encounter with Robert without it sounding completely crazy? "Liam will have his Christmas dinner after all," she finally replied. "And we might have a guest this year." Helen raised her eyebrows with interest. "A guest? Someone I should know?" "He's just a friend," Martha said, surprising herself with the ease with which she had used that word to describe Robert. "Someone who doesn't have family to spend the holidays with." For his part, Robert found himself strangely distracted during his meetings. In the middle of a presentation on financial projections for the next quarter, he found himself thinking about what kind of board game a 5-year-old might like. During a lunch with potential investors, he wondered if he should also bring a dessert for Christmas dinner. Robert, his assistant's voice, Caroline's, brought him back to reality. They were alone in his office, reviewing the next day's agenda. "Sorry, were you saying something?" Caroline looked at him strangely. In 10 years of working for him, she had rarely seen him distracted. "I was asking if you wanted me to reserve the usual table at the Circle for your Christmas Eve dinner." "It won't be necessary. I have other plans this year." The surprise on Caroline's face was evident. "Other plans? Do you want me to coordinate something different?" "No, Caroline. They are personal plans." The word personal hung in the air between them as something strange, almost improper for Robert Sterling's usual vocabulary. The night before Christmas Eve, Robert found himself in a shopping mall toy store, a place he hadn't visited in decades. He felt completely out of his element among hurried parents and excited children. Finally, after consulting with a saleswoman, he decided on a simple but entertaining strategy board game suitable for all ages. While paying, he impulsively added a reindeer plush toy, remembering Liam's role in the school play. When he returned to his mansion, he noticed that his housekeeper, Mrs. Rodriguez, was looking at him curiously as she placed the carefully wrapped gifts on the reception hall table. "Will you be out tomorrow, sir?" asked the woman, who had worked for the Sterling family for over 20 years. "Yes, Mrs. Rodriguez. I'll be dining out. Should I prepare anything special for your return?" Robert considered the question. For the first time in years, he hadn't planned every detail of his Christmas night. "It won't be necessary. In fact," he hesitated for a moment, "you can take the day off. Go be with your family." Mrs. Rodriguez looked at him as if he had suddenly grown a second head. "Are you sure, sir? In all these years you have never—" "I'm sure," he interrupted gently. "Family is important on these dates. You should be with yours." That night, while reviewing some emails before bed, Robert received a message from Martha. "Liam asked 3 times today if it's much longer until our special guest arrives. I hope the anticipation he's created doesn't scare you." Robert smiled at the screen, feeling an inexplicable warmth in his chest. He replied, "On the contrary, I don't remember the last time someone looked forward to my presence with excitement, and not for what they could get from me. It's refreshing." He sent the message, and then, after a brief thought, added, "Thank you for opening your home to a stranger. It means more than you can imagine." In her small apartment, Martha read Robert's message with a smile, while Liam slept hugging his favorite teddy bear. The turkey was already prepared to be cooked tomorrow, and she had improvised some Christmas decorations with materials she had at home. It wasn't luxurious, but she had put love into every detail. She looked at the photo on her nightstand, her and Liam last summer, smiling in a park. Since her ex-husband, Albert, had left them, she had built a life for the two of them, sacrificing many things, but always maintaining her dignity and optimism. It wasn't easy, but she managed day by day. Was she crazy for inviting a wealthy stranger to share her modest Christmas dinner? Perhaps. But something about Robert, a loneliness she recognized all too well, had touched her heart. Everyone deserved company at Christmas, even millionaires with empty mansions. She fell asleep thinking about the strange series of coincidences that had led to this moment. A simple comment to her son in the grocery store, overheard by a stranger, had triggered something unexpected. As if fate, or perhaps the Christmas spirit, had decided to interweave 2 seemingly incompatible lives in search of something they both needed, but didn't know they were looking for. Christmas Eve morning dawned cold but clear, with a sky so blue it seemed unreal over the city. Robert woke up before his alarm, which was unusual for him. He normally needed at least 2 cups of coffee to start the day, but today he felt strangely alert, almost expectant. His phone vibrated with the familiar sound of accumulating emails and messages. Ignoring the automatic corporate greetings and last-minute invitations, he looked for a message from Martha. He found it near the bottom. "Good morning. Liam is so excited he barely slept. We expect you at 7. Here is the address. Nothing fancy, I warn you." Robert smiled at the honesty of the warning. He replied simply, "It will be perfect." After his morning routine, he dedicated the morning to resolving some pending issues. He wanted to have the day completely free, without work interruptions. At noon, he received a call from Michael. "Robert, did you reconsider the club thing? The table is still reserved in your name." "No, Michael. As I told you, I have other plans." "With whom?" The direct question reflected his partner's disbelief. "In 15 years, you've never turned down the club dinner." Robert briefly considered how to answer. "Let's just say I met someone who made me a more interesting offer." The whistle on the other end of the line was immediate. "Wow. A woman? It was about time. Someone I know?" "No, you don't know her. And I'd prefer not to talk about the topic anymore." "Whatever you want," Michael replied, although his tone suggested the matter wouldn't be forgotten so easily. "But if you change your mind, call me." After hanging up, Robert stayed contemplating the phone. Was it so strange that he preferred a homemade dinner with genuine people to a night of frivolity at the club? At what point had his life become so predictable, so empty? In the middle of the afternoon, Robert was standing in front of his closet, facing a dilemma he hadn't anticipated. What to wear? He didn't want to look too formal, but he also didn't want to be disrespectful. Finally, he opted for dark pants, a grey cashmere sweater, and an elegant but not ostentatious coat. No gold cufflinks or collection watches. Just a man visiting friends on Christmas Eve. The word friends resonated in his mind as he drove. Was that what they were? He barely knew Martha and Liam, yet he felt a connection with them that he didn't experience with people he had known for years. Meanwhile, in her small apartment, Martha was running around, alternating between the kitchen and the living room. The turkey was in the oven, filling the space with its tempting aroma. She had decorated the table with the best she had: an embroidered tablecloth she had inherited from her grandmother, the glass cups she reserved for special occasions, and candles she had bought with the money Robert added to her cart for ingredients. Liam followed her everywhere, dressed in his party clothes, slightly oversized dress pants, bought to last him, and a light blue shirt she had carefully ironed. "Mum, is it much longer until Mr. Robert arrives? Do you think he'll like my drawing?" Martha smiled at her son's enthusiasm. He had spent the morning creating a Christmas card for their guest, a Christmas tree with 3 figures beneath it, labelled Mum, Me, and Mr. Robert. "I'm sure he will love it," she replied, adjusting Liam's shirt. "And remember, you can just call him Robert, like a friend." The innocent question made Martha pause for a moment. "Yes, like a friend." "A special friend of yours?" Liam insisted, with that childish insight that sometimes surprised her. "He's a new friend for both of us," she replied diplomatically, avoiding her son's curious gaze. "Now, help me set these napkins." At 6:30, Martha allowed herself a moment to look in the mirror. She had chosen a simple but elegant burgundy dress that she almost never wore. She had applied light makeup and gathered her hair into a soft bun. She wasn't trying to impress, she told herself. She just wanted to look presentable for the occasion. "You look very pretty, Mum," Liam commented from the bathroom door. You look like a Christmas princess. Martha laughed, grateful for the simplicity with which children express their compliments. And you look like a very handsome prince. At 6:50, the doorbell rang. Liam ran toward the door with such speed that he almost slipped in the hallway. Wait, Martha stopped him. Remember what we talked about opening the door? Ask who it is first, Liam recited obediently. Exactly. Liam approached the door. Who is it? He asked in a sing-song voice. Robert, a voice replied from the other side. I bring gifts for Liam and his mum. The word gifts was all Liam needed to hear. He looked at his mother with pleading eyes until she relented, allowing him to open it. Robert was on the threshold, holding several elegantly wrapped gift bags and a bouquet of white and red flowers. He seemed slightly nervous, something completely unusual for a man accustomed to leading meetings with the country's most powerful executives. You came, Liam exclaimed, with a smile that lit up his entire face. As promised, Robert replied, kneeling down to the boy's height. And I brought something special for the best reindeer in class. Liam jumped excitedly, while Martha watched the scene with a mix of warmth and something akin to disbelief. The powerful businessman, because she had researched who Robert Sterling was after their encounter, looked surprisingly natural interacting with her 5-year-old son. Welcome, she finally said, approaching. Please, come in. Robert handed her the bouquet of flowers. Thank you for the invitation. It smells wonderful. That's the turkey, Martha replied, feeling a slight blush at the implicit compliment. I hope you like it. It's not exactly haute cuisine, but I'm sure it will be the best dinner I've had in years, he interrupted her sincerely. The apartment was exactly as Robert had imagined, modest but cozy, decorated with small personal touches that reflected the personality of its inhabitants. Photographs of Liam at different stages of his growth, some framed children's drawings, well-kept plants in the windows, and a small collection of books neatly arranged on a shelf. There was nothing luxurious, but everything was impeccably clean and organized. And look what I drew you, Liam exclaimed, running to fetch his card. He handed it to Robert with the pride of an artist presenting his masterpiece. Robert examined the drawing with genuine interest. It's magnificent, Liam. Look how you captured all the details of the tree. And this is us, right? Yes, Liam nodded enthusiastically. You, Mum, and me. A Christmas family. The innocent comment created a moment of silence between the adults. Martha seemed momentarily uncomfortable, but Robert responded naturally. It's the best gift I've received this Christmas. I will treasure it always. The tension dissipated, and Martha smiled, grateful for the way Robert had handled the situation. Would you like something to drink while we finish setting the table? Whatever you have will be fine, he replied, handing her the gift bags. These are for you. Nothing extravagant, I promise. Martha hesitated before accepting them. It wasn't necessary. Please, he insisted softly. It would make me happy if you accepted them. Liam was already investigating the bags with the characteristic curiosity of his age. Can we open them now, Mum? Please? After dinner, she replied automatically, and then looked at Robert. If that's okay with you? As you prefer, he nodded. Although I understand that in some families, it's tradition to open one gift on Christmas Eve. Yes, Liam exclaimed. Like at Michael's house, he always opens one on Christmas Eve. Martha gave in with a resigned smile. Okay, one gift now, the rest tomorrow. While Liam carefully selected which package to open first, Martha led Robert to the small kitchen. The contrast with the professional kitchens he was used to was evident. but there was something infinitely more appealing about this space where every utensil had a history and purpose. "I hope it's not too simple for you," she commented, pouring some red wine into a glass. "I'm not used to having guests of your caliber." Robert took the glass, appreciating the gesture. "Martha, I haven't felt this comfortable in a place for years. Your house is perfect, precisely because it is authentic." She looked at him, evaluating the sincerity of his words. What she saw seemed to convince her, because her posture visibly relaxed. "Mom, look." Liam's excited voice interrupted the moment. He ran into the kitchen, holding the reindeer plush toy Robert had bought. "It's just like my costume." "It's beautiful, honey," Martha smiled. "What do you say?" Liam turned to Robert with a solemn expression. "Thank you very much, sir. Robert, he's the best reindeer in the world." "I'm glad you like him," Robert replied, surprised by the warmth he felt at the child's reaction. No successful negotiation, no multi-million-dollar acquisition had ever provided him with comparable satisfaction. The next few minutes passed in a coordinated dance as they finished preparing dinner. To Martha's surprise, Robert offered to help, and he turned out to be quite competent at cutting bread and preparing the salad. He told her that, although he now had personal staff who cooked for him, there was a time in his college years when he lived alone and had to prepare his own meals. "Really, sir?" she asked with genuine interest. "I can't picture you cooking instant noodles in a dorm." Robert laughed. "Well, you should. My specialty was elaborate sandwiches. My roommates said I could turn any leftovers into a delicacy with enough mayonnaise and creativity." This unknown side of Robert fascinated Martha. It didn't fit the image of the ruthless businessman she had researched online, owner of a real estate empire valued at millions of dollars. When they finally sat down at the table, Liam insisted that Robert take the head of the table. "Because you are our special guest," he explained with the irrefutable logic of a 5-year-old. Martha had prepared a traditional dinner: roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, sautéed vegetables, and apple pie for dessert. Nothing extraordinary in culinary terms, but cooked with care and attention. "This looks delicious," Robert commented sincerely as Martha served the plates. "I hope it tastes as good as it smells," she replied with a mixture of pride and nervousness. Liam watched everything with bright eyes, dividing his attention between his new reindeer plush toy and the interaction between the adults. "Before we start," Martha said, "in our house we have a little tradition. Everyone says something they are grateful for this year." She looked at Robert with some shyness. "If it's not too cheesy for you." "Not at all," he replied. "It's a beautiful tradition." "Me first," Liam exclaimed, raising his hand as if in school. "I'm grateful for my new reindeer, for the turkey that smells so good, and because Mom isn't sad anymore like she was before." The simplicity and honesty of his gratitude moved the adults. "My turn," Martha continued after a moment. "I'm grateful for having such a wonderful son, for having work and health, and—" she hesitated briefly, "for unexpected new friendships." Her gaze met Robert's for an instant, before looking down at her plate. "And I," Robert began, surprised by the lump in his throat. "I'm grateful to be included at this table, for receiving the generosity of opening your home to a stranger, and for rediscovering, thanks to you, what Christmas really means." His words, spoken with simplicity but with deep sincerity, created a moment of connection that transcended the social and economic differences that should have separated them. "Now, let's eat," Liam declared, breaking the moment with his childish enthusiasm. And so, under the warm light of the candles Martha had arranged, began a dinner none of the present would ever forget. The first bite of the turkey provoked an unexpected reaction in Robert. He closed his eyes briefly, savoring the food as if it were the first time he tasted something authentic. "This is delicious," he said with sincerity. "Truly delicious." Martha smiled, visibly pleased. "It was my mother's recipe. It's nothing sophisticated, but it has its secrets." "The best dishes always do," Robert replied. "In fancy restaurants, they try so hard to impress that they sometimes forget that food should, above all, be comforting." Dinner proceeded with a naturalness that surprised both adults. Liam led much of the conversation, jumping from topic to topic with the typical enthusiasm of his age: his reindeer role in the school play, his kindergarten friends, the puppy he wished to have someday. "And do you have pets?" Liam asked, as Robert attacked his second slice of turkey. "Not currently," he replied, "although as a child I had a dog named Duke." "And why don't you have one now? Don't you like animals?" Martha gently reprimanded Liam. "Don't bombard Robert with so many questions." "It's okay," Robert smiled. "It's a valid question. The truth is, I travel too much for work. It wouldn't be fair to have a pet that would spend a lot of time alone." "You could hire someone to take care of it," Liam suggested with the practical logic of a child. "I could," Robert conceded. "But a dog needs more than physical care. It needs companionship, affection, time together. It's not something you can completely delegate." Martha looked at Robert with renewed interest. His answer revealed a sensitivity that contrasted with the public image of the ruthless businessman she had researched. "And what exactly do you do?" she asked, seizing the opportunity. "You said you were in the real estate business, but I guess it's more than that." Robert hesitated briefly. He didn't want his financial position to change the dynamic of the evening, but he also didn't want to lie. "I develop properties," he finally replied. "Mainly hotels and residential complexes." "Like which ones?" Martha's curiosity was genuine. "The skyline in the northern zone, the dunes on the coast." He mentioned some of his best-known projects, carefully observing her reaction. Martha's eyes widened slightly. "Those are yours? I pass by the skyline every day on my way to work. It's impressive." "Not just mine," Robert clarified. "I have partners, investors. But yes, my company developed them." "Then you're like, really important," Liam intervened, impressed. Robert smiled at the childish simplification. "In some circles, perhaps. But tonight, I'm just a grateful guest, sharing this dinner with you." The answer seemed to satisfy Liam, who quickly changed the subject to the board game he hoped to open after dinner. Martha, however, kept her gaze on Robert for a few seconds longer, as if trying to reconcile the millionaire businessman with the simple man sharing her table. When it was time for dessert, the tone of the conversation had become more personal. Robert told them about his early years building his company, the initial difficulties, the failures that preceded success. "People only say the final result," he explained as he savored the apple pie. "Not the moments of doubt, the crippling loans, the sleepless nights." "I understand you perfectly," Martha nodded, "although on a different scale, of course." "What do you mean?" "The sacrifices, the doubts." Martha played with her fork. "When Albert left us, I had to reorganize our whole life. There were times when I didn't know if I could pay the rent for the next month. I learned to live day by day." The vulnerability in her voice moved Robert. "It requires a special kind of courage," he said. "I only risked money and pride. You had much more at stake." Their eyes met briefly, in a moment of mutual understanding that transcended the differences in their circumstances. "I'm finished," Liam announced, showing his empty plate. "Can we open the gifts now?" "Only one more gift tonight," Martha reminded him. "The rest tomorrow." While Liam ran to fetch another package from the ones Robert had brought, Martha began clearing the dishes. Robert got up to help, following her to the kitchen. "Let me help you," he offered, grabbing a dishcloth to dry the dishes she was washing. "You don't have to." "Please," he insisted. "I'd like to contribute somehow." They worked in comfortable silence for a few minutes, establishing a natural rhythm. She washed, he dried. The domesticity of the scene was strangely satisfying for both of them. "Can I ask you something personal?" Martha finally said, keeping her gaze on the plate she was rinsing. "Go ahead." "With your position, you must know many people, have many options for spending the holidays. Why did you choose to have dinner with us, with two complete strangers?" Robert considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "Precisely because you were strangers, or were." Martha looked at him, confused. "In my world," he explained, "everything has an ulterior motive. Every invitation, every conversation, every gesture of apparent generosity, there is always something behind it. A potential contract, a future favor, a strategic alliance. No one approaches me for who I am, but for what I represent or what I can offer." He put the dishcloth down on the counter, searching for the right words. "When I heard you in the grocery store, I saw something real. A mother being honest with her son about a difficult situation. A child showing understanding beyond his age. Neither of you knew who I was, nor did you care. That authenticity, it attracted me like a magnet." Martha absorbed his words in silence, reflecting on them. "It must be difficult," she finally said, "not knowing if people are sincere with you." "You get used to it," Robert replied with a small smile. "But that doesn't mean you don't yearn for something different." "Mom, Robert," Liam's voice interrupted the moment. "I found the one I want to open." They returned to the living room, where Liam was holding a rectangular box wrapped in silver paper. "Can I?" Martha nodded, and the boy proceeded to tear the paper with enthusiasm. His eyes lit up as he discovered the board game Robert had selected. "Wow, it has pirates and treasure," he exclaimed, examining the box with reverence. "Can we play it now, please?" Martha looked at the clock. "A quick game. It's almost your bedtime." The next 45 minutes passed with laughter, shouts of victory, and playful complaints as the three navigated the colourful board. Robert, accustomed to high-pressure negotiations, found himself completely absorbed in the search for pirate treasures and in avoiding the traps that Liam, with unexpected cunning, set for him. Martha watched the interaction between them, noting how Robert transformed during the game. The formal stiffness that occasionally appeared in his posture had completely vanished. He laughed openly, genuinely celebrated Liam's successes with enthusiasm, and accepted his own defeats with humor and grace. "I won," Liam finally proclaimed, placing his token on the treasure chest. "I'm the best pirate." "No doubt," Robert conceded, feigning dismay. "You plundered my ships mercilessly. It's because you are very good at sharing your treasure," Liam replied, with that innocent wisdom that sometimes emerged from his comments. The words, spoken without ulterior motives, resonated deeply with Robert. Sharing his material wealth had never been a problem for him. He donated regularly to charities, funded scholarships, supported community projects. But sharing his true self, his thoughts, his feelings, that was a treasure he had jealously guarded. "Bedtime, Captain Pirate," Martha announced, noticing that Liam was starting to rub his eyes. "Tomorrow is Christmas, and you need to rest to open the rest of the gifts." "Will Robert be here tomorrow?" Liam asked hopefully. The question created a moment of silent tension. They hadn't discussed plans beyond the Christmas Eve dinner. "I have some commitments in the morning," Robert answered cautiously, looking at Martha. But if your mum doesn't mind, I could stop by to say hello in the afternoon. Of course, Martha said, surprising herself with the quickness of her reply. That would be nice. Liam's smile was immediate. And great. We can play with all my new toys. After a bedtime ritual that included brushing teeth, putting on pajamas, and a Christmas story, Liam finally settled into his bed, hugging his new reindeer plush toy. He insisted that Robert also participate in the ritual, asking him to help read the story. Good night, Liam, Robert said from the doorway of the small bedroom, moved by the trust the child had given him so easily. Good night, Liam replied, already half asleep. I'm glad you're lonely. Lonely? Robert didn't understand the reference. Yes, so we can share our Christmas with you. With those words, the little boy finally succumbed to sleep. Martha and Robert returned to the living room in silence, each processing Liam's words in their own way. He has a huge heart, Robert finally commented. He does, Martha nodded with maternal pride. Sometimes it scares me how perceptive he can be. He picks up on things even I don't notice. They sat on the sofa, contemplating the small Christmas tree that decorated the corner of the room. The flashing lights created hypnotic patterns in the dim light. More wine? Martha offered. Just a little, thank you. She poured 2 glasses and handed one to Robert, sitting down again, this time a little closer. It has been a wonderful evening, he said. I don't remember the last time I enjoyed a Christmas dinner so much. We enjoyed it too, she responded sincerely. Liam especially. I haven't seen him this excited in a while. He's an extraordinary boy. Robert rotated the glass between his fingers, observing the movement of the wine. He deserves all the Christmas dinners in the world. And you deserve sincere companionship, Martha replied softly. Not just people interested in what you can offer them. The honesty of her words created a moment of unexpected intimacy. Robert looked at her, appreciating not only her physical beauty, but the inner strength that emanated from her, the dignity with which she faced her circumstances, the authenticity she had shown since their first meeting. I think I should go, he finally said, though without making a move to leave. It's getting late. Yes, Martha nodded, equally still. I guess so. They remained in silence for a few more moments, enjoying the shared quietness, the faint Christmas music playing from the small radio in the kitchen, the moment of connection that both felt, but neither dared to name yet. Finally, Robert stood up, and Martha accompanied him to the door. As they said goodbye, he took her hands in his delicately. Thank you, he said simply, for everything. Thank you, she replied. For the gifts, for the company, for making this Christmas special for Liam. Tomorrow afternoon, then, Robert confirmed. We'll be waiting for you. When the door closed behind him, Robert remained in the hallway for a moment, feeling a mixture of emotions he couldn't fully name. Joy, certainly. Gratitude, undoubtedly. And something else. Something warm and promising that he hadn't experienced in a long time. In her apartment, Martha collected the last remnants of dinner, humming a Christmas melody softly. She paused for a moment in front of the window, observing the city lights and reflecting on the unexpected turns of fate. Just a few days ago, she had been worried about not being able to offer Liam a traditional Christmas. And now, she smiled to herself. Now Christmas promised to be much more meaningful than she had ever imagined. Christmas morning dawned with an unusually clear sky for the season. Robert woke up early, as was his custom even on holidays. However, something felt different. The usual feeling of emptiness he experienced when waking up alone in his enormous mansion had been replaced by a strange warmth, an echo of the previous evening that persisted in his memory. He prepared a coffee and walked to the terrace overlooking the property's gardens. The contrast with Martha and Liam's small apartment was overwhelming. Here, everything was designed to impress. The large windows, the designer furniture, the strategically placed artwork. And yet none of this had ever provided him with the feeling of home he had experienced for a few hours in that modest two-bedroom apartment. His phone rang with the tone assigned to work calls. It was Michael, his partner. "Merry Christmas, Robert. How was your mysterious evening?" "Good morning, Michael. Merry Christmas to you too. It was revealing." "Revealing? That sounds intriguing. I expect details when we meet." "We'll see," Robert replied, evasively. "Were you calling about something in particular?" "Yes. I received an email from the Japanese investors. It seems they want to move up the meeting for the Osaka project." Robert frowned. "Can't they wait until after the holidays?" "Apparently not. They suggest a video conference tomorrow." At any other time, Robert would have rearranged his schedule without hesitation. The Japanese investors represented an international expansion opportunity he had pursued for months. But now, "I can't tomorrow, Michael. I have personal commitments." The silence on the other end of the line was eloquent. "Personal commitments? You?" "Yes, me," Robert replied firmly. "Propose the day after. If that doesn't work for them, they'll have to wait until after New Year's." After hanging up, Robert remained contemplating the city that stretched beyond the limits of his property. Somewhere in that vast urban expanse, Martha and Liam would be waking up, perhaps opening the gifts he had left under their small tree. The mental image brought an involuntary smile to his face. His phone vibrated with a message. It was a photo sent by Martha. Liam, in pajamas and messy hair, was holding the reindeer plush toy with a radiant smile. The message simply said, "Merry Christmas from your #1 fan, second favorite plush toy after the reindeer you gave him." Robert looked at the image for a long time, feeling something he took a moment to identify as simple, pure happiness. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Martha watched Liam methodically unwrap the gifts Robert had left. In addition to the board game and the reindeer plush toy, he had selected other presents with obvious care. An age-appropriate construction kit, illustrated books about pirates and sea adventures, remembering the boys' enthusiasm for the board game, and a small children's telescope with a note that read, "To explore the universe from your window." "Look, Mum, I can see the stars." Liam held the telescope with reverence. "It's beautiful," Martha nodded, moved by the thoughtfulness Robert had put into each gift. They weren't simply expensive objects. They were selections that reflected a genuine attention to Liam's interests and personality. For her, Robert had left a package wrapped in silver paper with a small handwritten card. "Something for you, though nothing could equal the gift of your hospitality." Opening it, Martha found an elegant cashmere shawl in deep blue tones. It was luxurious but discreet, exactly the kind of garment she herself would have chosen if she had the means. Next to the shawl was an envelope. She opened it curiously, finding inside a certificate for an advanced architectural design course at the local university. Her eyes welled up as she read the accompanying note. "To continue building your dreams. No strings attached, just admiration for your talent and determination." "Oh," Liam approached, noticing her emotion. "Why are you crying, Mum? Don't you like your gift?" "I love it," she replied, wiping away a tear. "Sometimes we cry when we are very happy, honey." "Adults are weird," Liam declared with conviction, returning to his telescope. Martha smiled, running her fingers over the soft cashmere. Robert's gesture deeply moved her. He hadn't chosen ostentatious jewelry or expensive perfumes, the typical gifts a wealthy man might select to impress. He had opted for something beautiful but practical. And more importantly, he had recognized and supported her deferred professional aspiration. The morning passed with games, laughter, and the preparation of a simple meal with the leftover ingredients from the previous night's dinner. Martha noticed that Liam repeatedly asked about Robert, checking the time frequently. "When is Robert coming? After lunch? Is it afternoon yet?" "It's still early, honey. Robert said he would come in the afternoon. We have to be patient." But she herself found herself looking at the clock more often than usual, anticipating his arrival with a mixture of nervousness and expectation she hadn't experienced in a long time. A few miles away, Robert faced an unusual dilemma for him: what to bring to his afternoon visit. He didn't want to show up empty-handed, but he also didn't want to overwhelm Martha with more gifts that might make her uncomfortable. Finally, he opted for something simple but meaningful: fresh ingredients to make homemade hot chocolate and dough for Christmas cookies they could bake together. He remembered that Liam had mentioned how much he enjoyed decorating cookies with his mother. As he carefully selected each ingredient in a gourmet store near his home, Robert reflected on the unexpected turn the holidays had taken. Just 3 days ago, he was preparing for another lonely Christmas, surrounded by luxury but lacking genuine connections. Now he found himself planning an afternoon of homemade cookies with a family he barely knew, but who had touched something deep inside him. At 4 o'clock, the doorbell of Martha's apartment rang. Liam ran toward the door, remembering his mother's safety instructions. "Who is it?" he asked, although the excitement in his voice betrayed that he already knew the answer. "Robert, with supplies for a special Christmas cookie mission." The door opened immediately, revealing Liam with an expression of absolute happiness. He was wearing a new t-shirt, clearly a Christmas gift, with the image of a pirate ship, and was holding the reindeer plush toy under his arm. "You came?" he exclaimed, as if he had really doubted his promise. "Of course," Robert replied, kneeling down to his level. "Pirates always keep their word, right, Captain?" Liam nodded solemnly before noticing the bags Robert was carrying. "What did you bring?" "Ingredients for a secret operation," he explained conspiratorially. "But we'll need your mum's help." Martha appeared in the hallway, and Robert felt a strange flip in his stomach. She was wearing simple jeans and a blue blouse, with her hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. Nothing extraordinary, yet he found her absolutely beautiful in her naturalness. "Merry Christmas," she said with a smile that lit up her eyes. "Please, come in." "Merry Christmas," he replied, entering the apartment. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "We were just trying out the telescope," Liam explained, taking his hand to guide him toward the living room. "It's amazing. I can see the buildings across the city as if they were right here." "I'm glad you like it," Robert smiled, allowing the boy to lead him. "Thank you for the gifts," Martha said as they walked. They were very thoughtful, all of them. Their eyes met briefly, and Robert knew she was referring especially to the course certificate. "It was a pleasure," he replied simply. "And speaking of gifts," he held up the bags he was carrying. "I thought we could make Christmas cookies. Liam mentioned yesterday that it was a tradition between you." Liam's eyes lit up. "Yes, Christmas cookies. Mom and I always make them. But this year we were only going to make a few because flour is expensive." Martha gently interrupted Liam. "Remember, it's not polite to talk about prices." "It's okay," Robert intervened. "Liam's honesty is refreshing, and now we have enough ingredients to make all the cookies we want." The kitchen, though small, proved to be the perfect setting for the activity. Robert demonstrated surprising culinary skills, explaining that during his college years he had worked part-time in a bakery to pay for his studies. You? Working in a bakery? Martha seemed incredulous as she kneaded the cookie dough. I wasn't always a businessman, he smiled. There was a time when I needed every cent to pay for college. My father believed in me making my own way. But now you're rich, right? Liam chimed in, with the typical frankness of his age, while dusting flour over the counter and a good part of his shirt. Liam, Martha reprimanded him again. It doesn't bother me, Robert assured her. Yes, Liam, I now have more money than I need. But you know what? Sometimes I discover that the best things in life are priceless. Like what? The boy asked, genuinely interested. Robert considered the question while helping Liam cut the dough with star and Christmas tree-shaped molds. Like this afternoon, for example, he finally replied. Making cookies with you, the laughter, the companionship, the feeling of creating something together. I couldn't buy this, even if I wanted to. Martha watched him with an indecipherable expression, as if she were evaluating the sincerity of his words. The cookie preparation turned into a festive activity that occupied the entire afternoon. Liam insisted on decorating each one with coloured glaze and small candies, creating designs that oscillated between the artistic and the chaotic. Robert participated with enthusiasm, discovering a creative side he rarely had the opportunity to express in his daily life. This one looks like you, Liam said, showing a star-shaped cookie decorated with what appeared to be a smiling face and what he described as fancy hair. It's a great likeness, Robert laughed. I should hire the artist for my next official portrait. You have official portraits? Liam asked, fascinated. Not really, Robert admitted. Although there are some pretty serious photographs in the main office lobby, maybe they should be replaced with decorated cookies. It would be much cozier. Martha laughed at the mental image, and Robert found himself enjoying the sound, unconsciously looking for ways to provoke it again. While the cookies baked, filling the apartment with their sweet, spiced aroma, they prepared hot chocolate, following a recipe Robert had learned during a trip to Belgium. The combination of high-quality dark chocolate, cream, a touch of cinnamon, and nutmeg resulted in a drink that Liam solemnly declared the best chocolate in the entire universe and beyond. The sun was beginning to set when they finally sat down in the living room with a plate of freshly baked cookies and steaming mugs of chocolate. Liam insisted they try the telescope before it got completely dark, positioning it strategically near the window. And look, Robert, can you see the big building with the antenna? Is that one yours too? No, that one belongs to a telecommunications company, he replied, slightly adjusting the focus for the boy. Which ones are yours? Liam's curiosity was insatiable. Let's see. Robert scanned the visible horizon from the window. See that bluish glass building to the right of the cathedral? That's one of my company's projects. It's huge, Liam exclaimed, impressed. It must have thousands of rooms. 122 to be exact, Robert smiled. But you know what? None of them feels as cozy as this apartment. The sincerity in his voice made Martha look at him intently, as if trying to decipher the enigma this man represented. Powerful businessman and builder of skyscrapers, who found warmth in a modest apartment while making Christmas cookies with a 5-year-old boy. Why? She asked softly. Robert turned his gaze from the telescope, meeting Martha's questioning eyes. Because there's real life here, he replied simply. Out there, we build spaces to live. Here is where living really happens. The night had completely fallen when they finished clearing the last remnants of their Christmas baking session. The kitchen, though impeccable again thanks to the joint effort of the three, retained the sweet aroma of freshly baked cookies. Liam, his face slightly smeared with chocolate despite Martha's attempts to wipe it clean, continued enthusiastically explaining his plans for the telescope. I can see the moon and the stars. Michael says his older brother saw a satellite once. Do you think I can see one too? I'm sure you will, Robert replied, helping put the last cookies away in an airtight container. You just need patience and a clear sky. Martha watched the interaction between them with a mixture of amazement and warmth. In just 2 days, Robert had established a connection with Liam that seemed to have existed forever. There was no condescension in his treatment of the boy, only genuine respect and sincere attention. It's time to get ready for bed, she finally announced, noticing that Liam was starting to yawn despite his excitement. Tomorrow you can continue exploring the universe. But is Robert leaving now? The worry in the little boy's voice was evident. Robert quickly exchanged a look with Martha, seeking her guidance. He didn't want to overstep boundaries or assume anything. Well, she began, with some hesitation. Robert can stay a little longer if he wants. We could have some tea while you go to sleep. You'll stay. Liam directed his big, hopeful eyes toward Robert. I'd love to, he replied softly. The bedtime ritual turned into a collaborative effort. While Martha supervised the bath and pajamas, Robert received the honor of reading the bedtime story. A story about a boy who traveled to the stars seemed particularly appropriate, considering the new telescope. Will you come back tomorrow? Liam asked as his eyelids began to close, fighting sleep. Robert briefly looked at Martha, who was standing in the doorway of the room watching them. If your mum thinks it's okay, he replied cautiously. Liam mumbled, already half asleep. Could you stay forever? The innocent words floated in the air, charged with a meaning neither adult was prepared to address directly. Robert deposited a soft kiss on the boy's forehead, a gesture that came naturally, simple and unmeditated. Sweet dreams, Captain, he whispered. When they returned to the living room, a comfortable silence settled between them. Martha prepared tea, grateful for the activity that gave her something to do with her hands and a moment to organize her thoughts. He's extraordinary, Robert finally commented, accepting the cup she offered him. What is? Liam. His capacity to accept me without reservations. His spiritual generosity. Martha smiled with maternal pride. Children have that quality. They see the essential in people, without prejudice or calculation, a talent we unfortunately lose with age. They sat on the sofa, contemplating the lights of the small Christmas tree. The closeness between them felt natural, as if they had shared many similar evenings. The certificate for the course, Martha began, turning the cup in her hands. It's too generous. It's not generosity, Robert replied firmly. It's recognition. I saw your focus in the grocery store, the way you explained to Liam why you couldn't afford certain things. You have a clear, practical intelligence that deserves to be designing buildings, not cleaning offices. Martha looked at him directly, assessing the sincerity of his words. What she saw in his eyes deeply moved her. Why are you doing all this, Robert? Really? The question floated between them, loaded with vulnerability. At first it was impulse, he admitted, deciding that total honesty was the only possible path. I saw a mother explaining with dignity to her son why there would be no Christmas dinner, and I felt it wasn't pity, he quickly clarified. It was admiration, and also recognition. Recognition? Of something authentic in the midst of a world that, for me, had become increasingly artificial. Robert placed his cup on the table, searching for the precise words. In my daily reality, Martha, everything is transactional. Relationships, conversations, seemingly kind gestures. Everything has an ulterior purpose. And I myself had become part of that system. He paused, organizing his thoughts. But then you appeared. You and Liam, without knowing who I was or what I could offer, showed me something real, and I realized how hungry I was for authenticity. Martha listened attentively, without interrupting. What started as an impulse, he continued, turned into something deeper when I really got to know you. Liam with his open heart and his overflowing imagination. And you? His voice softened. You, with your quiet strength, your unbreakable dignity, your ability to create a true home with so little. We don't have much, Martha admitted, but we try to make what we have worthwhile. And you succeed. This apartment has more warmth, more life, more meaning than my entire mansion. They looked at each other in silence for a moment, aware that something important was taking shape between them, something fragile but promising. I'm scared, Martha finally confessed. Of what? Of what is happening? She made a vague gesture that seemed to encompass both of them. Our worlds are so different, Robert. You build skyscrapers, I clean offices. I don't want Liam to get his hopes up for something that could disappear when… She stopped, unsure how to continue. When I get bored of playing happy family with you, Robert completed, identifying her unexpressed fear. Martha nodded slightly, embarrassed but honest. It's an understandable fear, he acknowledged. And I can't offer you absolute guarantees because life doesn't work like that. But I can tell you this. What I have found here, with you, is not a whim or a novelty. It is… He searched for the right word. It's like finding an oasis after years crossing a desert I didn't even know I was crossing. He gently took Martha's hand in his. I don't know exactly what the road will be like from here, but I do know that I want to walk it with you, if you allow me. Martha's eyes welled up. Liam already adores you, she said with a trembling voice. I've never seen him connect with an adult like this, not even with his father when he was still with us. And you? Robert asked softly. What do you feel? Martha considered the question, appreciating that he sought her feelings, not just Liam's. So many men saw single mothers as an indivisible package with their children, without considering their personal needs and desires. I think I'm scared of how easy it has been to let you into our lives, she confessed, and how much I would like you to stay. Robert felt something expand in his chest, a warmth he couldn't remember experiencing before. Without words, he gently moved his hand to Martha's cheek, giving her time to pull away if she wished. She didn't. Instead, she leaned slightly into his touch, closing her eyes briefly. The kiss that followed was soft, tentative, a first step on an unknown but promising path. When they separated, both were smiling. I think Christmas cookies will be our new tradition, Robert murmured. Our. The word contained an implicit question. If you want it to be, he replied. I don't intend to rush anything, Martha. We can build this slowly with solid foundations, like the best buildings. She smiled at the architectural metaphor. I would like that. The next morning, Liam woke up to the surprise of finding Robert preparing pancakes in the kitchen, as if he belonged there forever. Far from questioning it, the boy accepted his presence with the naturalness of someone who finds exactly what he expected. During breakfast, Robert told them about a property his company had recently acquired, a house with a yard on the outskirts of the city. Originally designed as a model project but now unused. It needs some repairs and a personal touch, he explained, trying to maintain a casual tone. I was thinking of turning it into a rentable living space, but now it occurs to me that perhaps you could help me decide what to do with it. Liam's eyes lit up. Does it have room for a dog? I've always wanted a dog, but Mom says our apartment is too small. It has a pretty big yard, Robert responded, looking at Martha. Perfect for a dog, I think. Martha understood the implicit proposal and considered it carefully. She wasn't a woman who made hasty decisions, especially when they affected Liam. But something inside her told her that this man, who had entered their lives by chance, or perhaps by destiny, in a grocery store on Christmas Eve, was genuine in his intentions. "I would like to see that house," she finally said. "To give a professional opinion on its architectural potential, of course." Robert smiled, understanding that she needed to proceed cautiously, setting clear boundaries for Liam's sake and her own. "Of course," he nodded. "A purely professional consultation." Liam watched them, sensing that something important was happening between the adults. "Can we take the leftover cookies when we go to see the house?" he asked, oblivious to the complexities of the moment, but perfectly tuned in to the essentials. "The cookies are essential," Robert confirmed solemnly. "No house can be considered complete without good Christmas cookies." Martha contemplated this man who had transformed what promised to be a sad Christmas into something magical, not through expensive gifts, although those had also been present, but through his genuine presence, his respect for them, and his ability to find joy in the simple things that his world of luxury had forgotten to value. "I guess we did have a Christmas dinner this year after all," she commented with a smile. "And it was the best of my life," Robert replied, with a certainty that came from the soul. As Liam ran to fetch his telescope, insisting that it had to be part of the essential luggage for any expedition to a new house, Robert and Martha shared a knowing look. The future unfolding before them was full of unknowns, adjustments, and challenges, but also of possibilities. An improvised family, born from a chance encounter, united by something much more valuable than the gifts under the tree, the ability to see beyond appearances and find home in the heart of others. Because in the end, that was Christmas, not the opulent feasts or the costly presents, but the magic that arises when hearts open and lonely souls find their place in the world. A lesson a millionaire had learned thanks to a simple phrase heard in a grocery store. "Honey, forgive Mom, no Christmas dinner this year. Only now, there were dinners, and breakfasts, and cookies, and all the shared meals a family, a true family, could desire."